Hi there. Now we're going to do lesson 196. It can be but myself I crucify. Paragraph 1. When this is firmly understood and kept in full awareness, you will not attempt to harm yourself, nor make your body slave to vengeance. You will not attack yourself, and you will realize that to attack another is but to attack yourself. You will be free of the insane belief that to attack a brother saves yourself, and you will understand his safety is your own, and in his healing you are healed. A lot is said in this paragraph that is so key that we understand. Every attack is always to ourselves. And why is an attack on another an attack to ourselves? Because there's only one of us here. We are all sharing one energy. There is only one God, which is the one energy, the one consciousness that permeates everything. So an attack on another is an attack on the aspect of you that you've projected as that other. So we must maintain always in our full awareness that anything that you say to another, you're saying it to yourself. So once you realize that you can choose to shift your perception and see everybody as a mirror of you, what do you want to receive back? This is why the golden rule was taught to us 2,000 years ago. Do unto others as you would like have done unto you, because you're doing it to you. I like to say that all emotional wounds are self-inflicted. I've been saying that before I started studying A Course in Miracles, which is so fascinating to me that I was able to grasp that concept early on in my awakening, but I was also being guided by Jesus. So I know that I had a lot of personal training that was offered to me, which is why when I first read A Course in Miracles, I totally understood what was being said, because I'd already had that personal training from Jesus. And it was so much of it was taught to me in the course, The Power of Awareness, that I was given to teach. So absolutely, totally necessary that we accept that it can only be but ourselves that we crucify. Paragraph 2. Perhaps at first you will not understand how mercy, limitless, and with all things held in its sure protection can be found in the idea that we practice today. I know this is a hard concept to understand. It may in fact appear to be a sign that punishment can never be escaped, because the ego, under what it sees as threat, is quick to cite the truth to save its lies. Yet must it fail to understand the truth it uses thus. But you can learn to see these foolish applications and deny the meaning they appear to have. Your ego is not going to like it that you are crucifying yourself. Your ego is going to want to say, they did it to me. It's so-and-so's fault. If they had not done this, I would not have experienced this. And we have to override what the ego is telling you, that is trying to get you to not pay attention to this very simple but profound message. It can only be myself that I crucify. Because when you get that everything that you are saying out there, it's because you are experiencing in here. To give is to receive. If you want to experience love, joy, peace, release, you have to extend it. You must give it to others if you want to receive it. So if you want kindness, you cannot go around judging others. It's just not going to work, because it's a reflective universe. You're projecting out there what is in here, so it's being reflected back to you. Paragraph 3. Thus, do you also teach your mind that you're not an ego? Because when you make this choice, you're letting yourself know, I can override my thoughts, therefore I am not thoughts. I am the one who has thoughts. And more importantly, once you are the presence of awareness, aware of your thoughts, you become aware that the thoughts that are painful that we're projecting onto others is hurting us here. The thoughts that are loving that we project onto others feel loving here. When you get that your thoughts cause how you feel, you will not want to send bad feeling thoughts. You will not want to project out there negative feeling experiences, because you will know that it is only but yourself that you crucify. Always, 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 always. There is no exception to this. Sentence number 2 in paragraph 3. For the ways in which the ego would distort the truth will not deceive you longer. You will not believe you are a body to be crucified, and you will see within today's idea the light of resurrection, looking past all thoughts of crucifixion and of death to thoughts of liberation and of life. Jesus came to teach us that we're not a body, we're free. And when we recognize that we're not bodies, neither is anybody else. So what are we really? We are energy. We're the one undivided energy expressing itself in the bazillions of possibilities that it can, because God is infinite. So God can express itself in an infinite number of ways. And I'm one of those ways, you are one of those ways. And when we really understand that everything that we're putting out there, it's only affecting the one energy that we all share. That's why it's so important that we really, really get that I can but crucify myself, not you, ever, 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 ever. I can be mad at you all day long. I can sit here and be mad at you, and it's never going to hurt you. It's only going to hurt me. It'll only hurt you if you choose to be hurt, and then you're crucifying yourself. But I can say all kinds of nasty things about you right here, right now, and I'm the one who's going to be experiencing the discomfort of saying those things and believing those things about somebody else, because I'm putting it in my energy. That's how powerful this is. Paragraph 4. Today's idea is one step we take in leading us from bondage to the state of perfect freedom. This is a step towards perfect freedom. Let us take this step today that we may quickly go the way salvation shows us, taking every step in its appointed sequence, as the mind relinquishes its burdens one by one. It is not time we need for this. It is but willingness. There is a process we're all going to go through. There is a sequence. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what anybody teaches. There is a perfect sequence, and Jesus is teaching us that sequence through A Course in Miracles. And if you are willing to trust these steps, don't question them, just follow them, you will begin to feel a shift inside of you. The only reason someone doesn't feel a shift inside is because they're not trusting the work or they're not doing the work. But if you do the work and you trust the work, the results are absolutely life-changing. They are the steps to freedom. Sentence number 5 in paragraph 4. For what would seem to need 1,000 years can easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God. Willingness, if you have the willingness and you trust the work and you get it started, in one instant, you will have the experience that will shift you. Then the work is to do that one instant over and over and over and over again, to give yourself that holy instant where you shift your mind from fear to love, from ego to God, and miracles will be the way you live your life, period. Paragraph 5. The dreary, hopeless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. We have been taught that by blaming others, we somehow are free, but that's not the case. We stay in bondage to those that we attack always and forever, because then we fear them. We live our lives protecting ourselves from them. That's why to attack them is to crucify ourselves. Perhaps it seemed to be salvation, yet it merely stood for the belief the fear of God is real. Because if I don't attack you, I am going to not be happy. And if I'm not happy, I am justifying that happiness is not what God gave me as my function. That means I need to continue to attack you because I'm afraid God is not going to save me. Because if I don't attack you, I'm going to feel bad. And the ego is so deluded in believing that attacking another is a form of happiness, not letting us see that it's just a form of vengeance that appears to be happy for an instant. It's like a moment of pleasure, but underneath that remains the fear that you're going to come back after me, the fear of guilt that maybe I attacked somebody I shouldn't have. Our ego wreaks havoc on our minds when we project blame outside. This is powerful, powerful information. Crucial that you trust it, crucial that you practice what it is teaching you right here. Paragraph number 5, still sentence 4. And what is that but hell? Hell. To believe that God is to be feared is hell. Who could believe his father is his deadly enemy, separate from him and waiting to destroy his life and blot him from the universe without the fear of hell upon his heart? When we don't trust God, we become our own authority. We want to take vengeance into our own hands. That perpetuates a process that keeps us unaware that God is love, and it keeps us from healing our mind and becoming the loving presence of God on this planet. Paragraph number 6. Such is the form of madness you believe. If you accept the fearful thought, you can attack another and free yourself. It's impossible to free yourself while you attack another. Until this form is changed, there is no hope. Until you see that this, at least, must be entirely possible, how could there be escape? You gotta be willing to try what this course is telling you so that you can experience the efficacy of it. If you don't put it into practice and trust it, that it will work for you because Jesus is telling you that it will, you're not going to experience a shift, period. You're not going to experience it. And your ego is invested in you not experiencing the shift. So if you resist it, it's just your ego keeping you from freeing yourself from it. Paragraph number 6, sentence number 4. The fear of God is real to anyone who thinks this thought is true. If you think that you cannot escape the fear of God, then it is going to be true for you. You're going to fear God. And he will not perceive its foolishness or even see that it is there, so that it would be possible to question it. If you don't question your ego thoughts, you're not going to find the peace of God, because it is your ego thoughts that block you from experiencing the peace of God. Paragraph 7. To question it at all, its form must first be changed at least as much as will permit fear of retaliation to abate and the responsibility return to some extent to you. From there, you can at least consider if you want to go along this painful path. If you're willing to allow yourself to test this out, just give it a shot. You will see that this is going to create a level of discomfort. This is not an easy path. The path of questioning your thoughts, questioning who you think you are, questioning your beliefs about God, about the world, about the government, about one another, about yourself, about your body, feels very painful, because there's a dissolving of who you thought you were. Your identity begins to dissolve, but it's your ego's identity, which is very limited, very confined to a very small perception of who you and the world is, because this journey is about creating a miracle that is freeing us to accept that we're grander than we are. If everyone is one, can you imagine how big we are? Can you imagine if my energy encompasses 7 billion people, not to mention all the millions and billions, trillions of animals and birds and flowers and grasses and grains of sand? We're all of it. And we've allowed ourselves to receive a very small bit of who we are. So by erasing our beliefs, which feels painful because there is so then who am I if I'm not who I thought I was? We're going to have to move through that process, but the course is designed to help us through that. The course will not leave you alone in your painful dark night of the soul. The course is going to walk with you through it, and it's going to walk you to the other side. I know it has me. And what it walks you to is the awareness of your oneness with the Creator. I and the Father are one. You and the Father are one. When we all realize that we are all one with the Father, why would we hate on each other? We wouldn't do that. We would revere and uphold and uplift and just absolutely love one another. That's what will bring world peace. But until that moment, we have to have the willingness to question our thoughts. No matter how much your ego resists doing this work, tell yourself, I want the freedom that God is promising me here. Heck, use me as an example. Say, if Laina can do it, so can I. Give yourself permission to give this a try, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised at how your life becomes transformed. Here we go to sentence number 3 in paragraph 7. Until this shift has been accomplished, you cannot perceive that it is but your thoughts that bring you fear, and your deliverance depends on it. You have to shift your thinking and lift your perception. You have to shift from fear and shift to love. You have to shift from the density, the low density of the ego, and lift into the high frequency, the high vibration of love, so that you can see from up above what the ego has created that is insanity. When you can see from up above, because you're seeing through the eyes of God, everything that you see below, you will have compassion for, because you've been there. You've been down below in that density, and you went through the painful process of renewing your mind, seeing your story, seeing the ways that you have believed things about you and others that are not true, and thought that you were doing the right thing. And as you forgive yourself for doing these things that were incorrect, they were mistakes in perception, you forgive others who taught you that, because it's all that they knew. Little by little, we free the world, we take them off the hook, and when we release everybody from our blame, we return to the place of power, which is, how do I want to experience life now that I'm not blaming others? Because when you're not blaming others, a peace descends over you. All of a sudden, you find a spaciousness inside of you. There is an opening that takes place in your energetic field, because now, instead of those walls that separated you and kept you protected because you were believing you needed to defend yourself, you find your invulnerability. You find that you are one with God. You hear inspiration. You get to discover ways that you want to go into co-creation. You want to move forward and help others. Why? Because you will be delivering yourself from fear. You will have deliverance from fear. You will escape all fear, but not until you have the courage and the willingness to do this work. It is that simple. Now let's go to paragraph 8. Our next steps will be easy. After you move through that discomfort, will be easy if you take this one today. So this journey is always going to be easier on the other end of the discomfort of questioning your thoughts. Always, but you can't get to the easy part until you take this first step. From there, we go ahead quite rapidly, and it does move faster once you have questioned your ego. Once you get used to questioning the ego, this process moves a lot quicker. For once you understand that it's impossible that you be hurt except by your own thoughts, the fear of God must disappear. Absolutely. Once you get it that it's your thoughts that hurt you, there is no room for fearing God, because you realize you're the one who's creating your own fears. It's not God making you fearful. It's your believing thoughts that block you from knowing the truth, and that is what is fearful. You cannot then believe that fear is caused outside of you. And God, whom you had thought to banish, can be welcomed back within the holy mind he never left. So what we're doing is, instead of becoming your own authority and pushing God out, you clean up your mind, you create space because you stop hating on your neighbors. Inside of that spaciousness, you begin to feel peace. Inside of that peace, you begin to hear inspiration. That inspiration is of God. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, God is inside of me. Where God has been all along, but you couldn't feel God here because you were focused on what was out there. Paragraph 9. Salvation's song can certainly be heard in the idea that we practice for today. If it can but be you crucify, you did not hurt the world, and need not fear its vengeance and pursuit. Important statement here. Once you realize that you never did anything to hurt anybody, you will realize that there's no need to fear anybody retaliating against you. All of a sudden, there is a release. Oh, wow, I let go of the world. Now you're defenseless. Now you're at peace. Now you don't have to worry about the world coming after you, because you realize that there is no way that they can hurt you, because they're only hurting themselves when they try to crucify you. They crucify themselves. Nor need you hide in terror from the deadly fear of God projection. Deadly fear of God projection hides behind. So when you understand that projection is how the ego has us believe that God, we can't see God because we are projecting. So as we're projecting out there, this world out there, We cannot see that the projection is what hides you from your awareness of God's presence in here. So the thing you dread the most is your salvation. At the end of the day, the ego is so petrified that you are not going to need its crazy thoughts to keep you happy. When you realize that the ego's thoughts, who you think you are, is what keeps you in misery, the day that you no longer want to think those thoughts, you will find your salvation. You are strong, and it is strength you want. And you are free and glad of freedom. You have sought to be both weak and bound because you feared your strength and your freedom. Can you imagine? If you know that you are free, if you know that you are totally, completely strong, why are you not happy? Why are you not experiencing life with joy? Because you did not know you were strong and free. It's just that simple. When you begin to realize, what, I'm strong and free? How could that be? I've been protecting myself because I thought I was weak. But so many of us think that we're strong and think that we're free, but we're using that in a way. We think we're free to protect ourselves from others, free to blame others, free to judge others. We think we're free because, you can't get to me, I'm going to protect myself. That's bondage, because it puts me in charge of me. It doesn't allow God to be in charge of me. Until we know the freedom and the strength that comes only from God, we are really neither free nor strong. We're in bondage, we're in weakness. Yet salvation lies in them, in recognizing that our strength and our freedom comes from God. Paragraph 10. There is an instant in which terror seems to grip your mind so wholly that escape appears quite hopeless. When you realize once and for all that it is you fear, the mind perceives itself as split. There is a period you're going to feel schizophrenic, and it is terrorizing. And many people have been put in institutions because we didn't understand that people were going through a spiritual awakening, and we're beginning to see that they realized they were their only source of fear. So they were hearing all these voices and sometimes speaking those voices, but they were hearing the voice of God and the voice of the ego. They made a clear distinction between the two, and were realizing that they could choose to hear only the voice of God, and it was listening to the voice of fear that caused their own fear. This is absolutely powerful. When you realize once and for all that it is you fear, until you get that you should only be afraid of the voices that you're willing to believe. When you decide, oh my God, that's the thing that I no longer want to experience, and you decide no more, you're going to go through quite a level of discomfort of recognizing you've been doing this all to yourself, that it's been you who you've been crucifying. So the mind perceives itself as split. It's going to be uncomfortable. Let me read this again. There is an instance in which terror seems to grip you. Terror is quite an appropriate word here for me. That terror of realizing that it was my thoughts that were causing my fear. Once I began to realize, oh my gosh, I'm doing this to myself. All my emotional pain, all my suffering is self-inflicted. It was probably a process of several years. I am not going to cherry coat this. It is a very uncomfortable journey, the journey of awakening, but the Course is going to walk with you. Jesus wants to hold your hand. It is giving you step by step. If you're willing to do this work and have the courage to say, I know on the other end, I am going to receive what Jesus is promising me. I promise you the process gets easier and faster, and you will be so happy. You will be so free. You will know how strong you are, and nothing will be left except for compassion for those who don't have this awareness yet. Paragraph 10, sentence 3. And this had been concealed while you believed attack could be directed outward and returned from outside to within. So when you believe others can attack you and you can attack others and it's somehow justified and it's possible, you are blocking yourself. You're concealing this truth that Jesus is pointing to. Paragraph 4. It seemed to be an enemy outside that you had to fear. We were taught that it's them out there. And thus a God outside yourself became your mortal enemy. Oh my God, God is not protecting me. I got to protect myself from all these people, never realizing that in protecting yourself from these people, you were accusing them of doing something that you were not acknowledging you could do, which was save yourself, free yourself, find your own strength, and know nothing outside of you exists. Therefore, nothing outside of you can hurt you. That's where we become invulnerable. That awareness of our invulnerability is the result of doing this work. Let me read this again. And thus a God outside of you became your mortal enemy, the source of fear. So we think fear comes because of others. Paragraph 11. Now for an instant, is a murderer perceived within you. This is why it's going to feel like terror. For an instant, you're going to realize that you are the one who's been hurting yourself. A murderer perceived within you, eager for your death, intent on plotting punishment for you until the time when it can kill at last. These are pretty profound words, scary words. When I read this, it was very frightening. But the ego is interested in our suffering, is interested in us believing we're going to die. The ego convinces us that we're going to have death, which is why we believe that we are a body. As long as you believe you're going to die, the ego has you petrified of your eternalness. When you're petrified of your eternalness, it's only because you've been taught that on the other side you're going to go to hell. You're sinful. You're going to be punished. So we don't want to die because all of us deep down inside believe that we're guilty of sin. So the ego maintains this idea that we have to protect ourselves, that this is a scary, fearful world, that we really can't trust God. We might go through the motions of going to church or praying or trying to believe in God, praying, please give me this, give me that, never realizing how powerful we are and that God's already inside of us. So let me read this again. For an instant, and an instant can last a couple of years. It's lasted for lifetimes, but it can certainly last a couple of years if you're dedicated to this journey. It is a murderer that you perceive within you, eager for your death, intent on plotting punishment for you until the time when it can kill at last. It felt terrifying for me to realize I was the one who was making all of my suffering. But until I saw that, I couldn't stop the process that was taking place. I had to become fully aware that I was doing it to myself before I began to ask God to help me through this process. I began to hear the voice. I began to walk me through. I began to have Jesus walk me through this journey and embrace me and be my companion through this very uncomfortable journey. Yet in this instant is the time as well in which salvation comes. The moment of terror, oh my God, I'm doing this to me, was followed by the moment of total and utter relief and peace. Oh, if it's me doing it and I stop, it stops. If there's nobody else doing it to me and it's only me, then I have total and complete power over my suffering and my freedom. One thought away, always one thought makes me suffer, one thought makes me free. And that is when you begin to realize how powerful you are, that your thinking causes you to feel how you feel, that your thinking puts you in bondage or in freedom. It is so powerful. For fear of God has disappeared. When you know you have that power, you don't fear God, you know you did it to yourself. And you can call on Him, on God, to save you from illusion by His love. I began to quickly develop a relationship with God, calling Him Father and yourself His Son. That's when I began to see, oh my gosh, all of these years, I did not have a real relationship with God because I feared God. I was taught to fear God. I was taught I was a sinner. Of course I was afraid of God because all sinners go to hell. Once I cleaned up that illusion from my mind and I stopped thinking anything outside of me had power over me, I came inside, used my power to free myself. And when I freed my mind, all that was left was God in it. What is God? God is love. It's power. It's energy. It's creativity. It's what connects me to all that is. Amazing. What I discovered was in me all along. Not only did I believe it was outside of me, but I misperceived it. I didn't know what God was. And then when I got to know God, it was only because I felt it inside of me. Because the mind got quiet and stillness took place. Sentence number 5 in paragraph 11. Pray that the instant may be soon. Today. Now. Do the work now. Acknowledge that it is only you that can crucify you. Acknowledge God is in you and you want to get there now. Step back from fear and make advance to love. There is no thought of God that does not go with you to help you reach that instant and to go beyond it quickly, surely, and forever. When the fear of God is gone, there are no obstacles that still remain between you and the holy peace of God. None. If you're not afraid of God, and for me, my fear of God really began to disappear when I lost my fear of death. When I told my son Spencer, this was 8 years ago, that I was not afraid of him dying because I knew I had already made peace with God. I was not afraid of his death because there is no death. I knew God was inside of me and God was guiding me. I was hearing what exactly I needed to say to help my son move through his 4 years. He was on a drug adventure for 4 years. Talk about terror. Talk about me seeing my ego and being able to say, no, I'm not going to believe this thought, because I was grounded inside of the peace of God. The fear came up, but I didn't have to believe it. And the reason I didn't believe my fear-based thoughts is because I was already grounded with God inside of me. And then I could easily ask God, what would you have me do in this instant? And that conviction that I had about the truth of our eternalness is what I was able to meet my son with, to let him know that I trusted his eternalness also was just as much as mine. And he worked through his journey. Today, 8 years later, from the start of his drug adventure, no, he doesn't really truly believe everything that I say, but he believes a lot of it. He's on his own journey. He's got his own teachings. He selects his own books. And this young man's going to be 22 here in a couple of days. And for him, that is where his freedom comes from knowing the truth that is within him. Powerful, powerful. Sentence number 3, paragraph 12. How kind and merciful is the idea we practice. Give it welcome as you should, for it is your release. It is indeed but your mind. It is indeed but you, your mind, can try to crucify. Yet your redemption too will come from you. Your freedom comes from you. Your crucifixion comes from you. Your suffering is because of the thoughts you're believing. Your freedom is when you release fear-based thoughts and you accept only thoughts that are in alignment with the truth of what God is. Those truths are simple. We are eternal. We are energy. We are love. We are one with God. We are powerful beyond measure. When you live by those truths, there is nothing to fear, because you realize you're just creating the world by your thinking. When you clean up all of those projections of fear that you send out, guess what happens? Inside of the clarity inside of you, in that clear mind, you get inspired, and what you will begin to see in the world are the beautiful things, the beautiful people that you're going to collaborate, cooperate, co-create with, because we're shifting from me trying to get everything, protecting myself because I'm afraid and I'm in survival, to me knowing that I am one with you, and then we can share, we can help, we can uplift one another. Heaven on earth is where we're headed, but not until we clean up our mind. That keeps us from remembering that truth. This is a powerful lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for doing these lessons of A Course in Miracles with me. It is my honor to be able to share them with you. Have a magnificent day. Bye-bye.